Good afternoon. I'm Malcolm Thomas. I'm the INCOSE UK Immediate Past President, and welcome to this session of Meet the Council, where I'll be talking to our current Technical Director, Jon Holt. We run these sessions to give our members an insight into the various council roles that are up for election. And this year we've got the Technical Director, Jon's role, and the Deputy Finance Director role up for election. So we encourage people to come to these sessions, find out what it's all about, and then hopefully volunteer and nominate themselves for election, because that's how INCOSE UK works. We are a volunteer organisation and we're run by our volunteers. So without you, we don't go very far. So let me introduce Jon, our current Technical Director. So Jon, can you please sort of tell us about yourself and why you stood for election all those many years ago, it seems now?
Well, thanks, Malcolm. It was 2013 when I was elected. So yeah, I ended up doing 4 terms, which was never the intention originally. So and I think I've been involved with INCOSE UK since, gosh, the first event I went through was 1999, the International in Brighton, and that's the first time I sort of presented there. And I've been involved with them ever since, and attended most of the events. So back in the day, we didn't have the single event, a big event per year. We used to have an autumn assembly and a spring symposium. One was papers and one was just presentations. So I've been involved with those and delivering workshops for a number of years. But as with all these things, whenever you're involved with anything, you always look at it from the sidelines and you go, oh yeah, well, you know, if I was doing that, I'd do it like this. And so, you know, everybody's always, well, you know, I do this slightly differently. But it's also one of those people, it's easy to just sit on the sidelines and be like the keyboard warrior and go, oh yes, you know, do it this way. Well, if you want to make a difference, you've got to stand up and do something about it. And not that there's anything terribly wrong with what was going on, but you know, I thought, well, you know, we could have ideas. So to give people an idea, I think back in 2013 we had about 700 or 800 members of INCOSE UK. So it was a lot smaller then. It wasn't a professional engineering institute, and we just started doing the ASEC. It was coming up to our 20th anniversary, and so the first ASEC that I was involved in was the one in the Air Museum at Cosford, and that was the 20th one. And so it was really, you know, well, put your money where your mouth is. If you've got an opinion on how you think things should be done, then get involved and stand up. And that's one of the nice things about INCOSE UK is, as you said, Malcolm, we rely on volunteers. And, you know, if you think you do things differently, then, well, put yourself up for election. Don't just stand there complaining all the time. Get involved and do it. So that's really how I got involved. And as with all these different institutions, as we are now, the reality, what it looks like from the outside and what actually goes on in the inside are very different. And you know, and really people don't appreciate exactly what's involved in the role, you know, and just what's there. And it's overall, it's a very, very rewarding role. I got a lot out of it, and I certainly didn't intend to do 4 terms, but it just happened because everything happens quite slowly. You know, a 3-year term, and you'll know this, Malcolm, with your 6-year full term as president-elect president and now immediate president, it flies by, you know, and you think that sounds like a very long time, but it isn't really. 3 years isn't an awful lot of time to get things done. So I just started getting things sort of done how I wanted to. We just started the publication. So I went up for the 2nd term then. And again, and each time I got to the end of the term, it was, oh, I'd really like to see this through to fruition, you know, and we were starting new initiatives, particularly on the publication side of things. And the ASEC was becoming bigger and bigger. And we were trying out all sorts of new formats on that and new ideas. And before I know it, 12 years have gone by. So that's kind of the origin of it.
Yeah, and you're right. It goes past very quickly, and to get things done, particularly if you've got grand ideas, as we've seen with the transition to IFSI, it's never quite as smooth as you think it's going to be, and it will take quite a while. So what have you personally got out of the role, do you think?
I mean, I like it when you see something happen. I mean, I think there's a few main things. It's actually having a positive, hopefully a positive influence on INCOSE UK, obviously, but also on the wider systems engineering community as well. And I've been a systems engineer for my whole career now, for sort of 35 years now, and actually seeing a noticeable difference that you kind of contributed to. And so one example of this is the book publications that we now do. So we've now got 15 or so books, and they're being sold all around the world, and they're being translated into different languages now. And that's been really positive, and I still get quite a sort of kick out of that. And it's something when you go to a company and you see INCOSE UK books on people's bookshelves, and I think that's a really good sort of positive influence that we're having. That's very visible. I mean, there's lots more influences we have that people don't see quite as much, such as our involvement with other bodies. And again, you'll know this, Malcolm, dealing with the Engineering Council and all that sort of things. So that's the sort of things that people tend not to see. It's nice having the visible ones as well, things like the publications and the events. I always love the events and trying out new ideas on that as well. So it's very, very rewarding, I think. And like I say, because you can actually see the difference that you're making as time goes on. And you can see that the impact that it has on people and whether people like it or not. And things like the annual Systems Engineering Conference, we always get a good reaction to that. And it's nice when you get feedback from people as well. You get an email from people just saying they had a good time or whatever, or people will approach you at the event. And I think, you've seen this, Malcolm, we've been involved in this for the last sort of 5 years together. The changes we've been able to make to the ATEC and, trying out different ideas, different formats. Mm-hmm. Some work, some don't, but that's the nature of the beast. And it's the same with the publications and with the different events that we run, putting new services in place as well. So the endorsed training provider scheme that we put in place, and a few other things that we're looking at the moment. We've got the journal being launched this year as well. So it's things like that where you actually see a definite difference. It's not just you sat on a committee and you've been voting on things. You can actually see a really big difference, not just to INCOSE UK, but to the discipline of systems engineering itself. And I think that's what I sort of wanted when I got in. And I think I've achieved that to a certain extent. But as we said, it does take a lot longer. Going from the initial idea to actually seeing something come to fruition takes a long time. And as we get more professional as well, we got to do more sort of due diligence. There's got to be more of a provenance to everything that we do as well. And so, give you another indication of how things have changed. The annual Systems Engineering Conference, when I first took on the role, I think we had something like 7 papers submitted, and we were scrabbling around inviting people to fill the slots. Now we've got 9 slots for the conference itself. We've got 2 reserve slots. This year we had 44 papers submitted. So it's that's really evolved and become really very positive. And again, that it's very rewarding. You also have to bear in mind that unfortunately the sort of downside of things is if we've got 44 papers coming in and only 9 being accepted, then that means almost 4/5 of people aren't going to get their papers accepted, and a handful of people don't take that very well. So you have to deal with people like that as well and explain to them it's been rejected, it's just it wasn't in the top 9 kind of thing. So there's that sort of side of things as well. He's dealing with people. When they've got good feedback, he's very good and very rewarding. But also the other side of the coin is if people, do have a gripe with anything that's being done, you've got to address it. You've got to talk to these people. You've got to sort those things out. But yeah, so just seeing the difference that you make and having the ability to change things and try out the new ideas, and I think that's something I really enjoy about the job.
Yeah, no, and it's been a pleasure working with you over the last 5 years as well. Certainly the events are, and the ASEC in particular, that's our signature event, and we want it to go well. And we've seen over the last few years how it's grown to well over 200 people a day now. It's just great. So if you were, as you are just now, advising people about taking this role, what do you think are the sort of attributes of the person that would be your successor?
I think there's quite a few, because it's technical director, and I think compared to many roles, I think there's some of the requirements have to be a lot more stringent, to put it bluntly, because you're in charge of the technical direction of INCOSE UK. Okay, so it means that you have to have good technical skills anyway. You've got to have good communications as well, because you're dealing with not just a council, but an awful lot of members as well. You've got to do things like essentially host the ASEC, kick off the ASEC, do all those sort of things, do the introductions, run the events. When things, if things go wrong, you're the sort of go-to guy at the events and things like that. So the communication skills are important. I think it's very important that you have got a track record in systems engineering as well, in the wider community. And you really do need that systems engineering knowledge, because there's some council roles where you don't need quite so much of the knowledge. It's more the people skills or whatever side of things. But certainly in the technical director role, it sounds obvious, but people don't quite appreciate you do need technical skills. And so, for example, you're in charge of the technical processes as well. So that means there's an element of, for example, process modeling in there, and enterprise architecture. We do have an enterprise architecture below underneath INCOSE UK that we've published on in the past. And so that means you do need that level of skills as well. And it's difficult trying to get that line between being inclusive and exclusive of people, and trying to say, well, you can't come for this role if you don't have these particular skills, but there are some skills that you do need. So the whole process side of things, you need to know about a lot of best practice. So things like standards. So, 15288 is our go-to standard, for example. You have to be aware of that, the handbook, things like that. Also staying up to date with some of the other, not just INCOSE UK, but INCOSE publications as well. So I mentioned the handbook, competencies framework, things like that. Also, and I think something that's emerged since I've had the role, is the publication side of things. And that's now quite a key part of INCOSE UK, is the publications. So you've really got to have some experience, not necessarily in publishing, as in publishing books. I mean, I have it as a background, and that's why I was able to start the whole thing off in the first place. But certainly you need to be published, and you need to be aware of what's involved in the publishing process, even if you never sort of executed that themselves. So to give you an indication of that, I'd already had 3 different publishers by the time I took on this role. And so I was able to bring a lot of that to it. But then it was up to me and the team to then define all the processes around publication. And that requires some domain knowledge. It requires knowledge of process modeling and things like that. It also requires knowledge of making sure it maps onto best practice, also making sure it fits in with the other sort of policies and directives that we have in INCOSE UK. So there's quite a lot that you don't see behind the scenes, because what people see is, oh, here's some nice books, but actually the process that you go through to do that and maintain all the authors. So that's becoming increasingly a part of it, this sort of experience, and at least having been published at the very least. Almost like the mechanical side of that, you can kind of learn as you go along, but you certainly do need to have some knowledge in that as well. And also, to a certain degree, to a lesser degree, I think, than some of the other roles, but planning skills as well. Things like having managed a budget, those kinds of things, being able to figure out, well, if we put a new service in place, if we release a new product, is it going to make money or isn't it? And that's not necessarily everything we do has to make money, but we need to budget for it, and we need to allow for that and say, where's that money coming from? And if we're getting money from one product or service, yeah, we can offset it against other things, or is something sort of an investment for the future. So, and it's the whole strategic side of things as well. So we do the technical strategy, and so there's quite a lot of skills involved. But I wouldn't let people, don't let it put you off too much. In terms of time, and for me, I think this is one of the big things. You've got to be aware. I'll say on average, and it's certainly not this every week, but I'd say on average over the year, you're looking at a day a week or something like that. So, for example, at the moment, the ASEC, we just had the abstracts in. We've got 44 been submitted. I've now got to find 3 reviewers per paper, 44 papers. That's quite time consuming. First of all, although I've got to pull the reviewers, I've got to contact them, I've got to find out what their current areas of domain knowledge and skills are, and that takes a lot of time. So when it comes to setting up for the ASEC and particular papers, there's a lot of time and effort involved. Every time we get a new publication, someone submits a new book, more time involved as well. We run monthly publications meetings. We have monthly event meetings as well. These are all online, but again, it's all stuff that takes time. There's the 4 face-to-face council meetings. Okay, we have a face-to-face events committee meeting every year, and we have at least one potential venue visit as well. So when we go to the ASEC, we'll go and visit a number of venues. That will take a day or two. So there's all these. It is quite a big time commitment, and I think that's increased as time has gone on, because as the role has grown, the publications, the services, the new journal, and so on, it's more and more time. And yes, I've got a team as part of the secretariat, and I've got some of the volunteer members as well. But even when I'm just coordinating things, that it still takes a lot of time and effort. So it is very rewarding, but you have to be able to do that. And in particular, you've got to bear in mind your company's got to be happy with you committing to that time. And I know this is something that you've experienced yourself, Malcolm, and that's with President. Half the battle is actually getting your company to back you in that. And I think that's really important, because it's like at the ASEC, people don't realise exactly how much effort goes into that. What we always sort of jokingly say, as long as we give the impression that everything's running smoothly, that's what we need. Because what people aren't seeing is the chaos that goes on behind the scenes. And it's the same with a lot of things we do. It's a lot more than just we submit a paper and it magically comes back as accepted or not accepted, or whatever it's going to be.
Yes.
So
it's that image of the swan, isn't it?
yeah, it's very, very much. But yeah, so you do need the technical skills, you need the systems engineering knowledge, you do need some experience in publishing, you need to know about things like the standards and the current best practice and those kinds of things. You've got to be good with the sort of written skills as well. There's quite a lot of writing involved in terms of the strategy, writing pieces for e-preview, all those kinds of things, writing guidelines, and particularly at the moment, all the procedures we do with IFSI. So writing a lot of those. There's a lot of reviewing of the internal policies and things like that involved as well. So, but yeah, like I say, it is a lot of effort. I don't want to scare people off, but it is a commitment in time and effort. But it's incredibly rewarding, and I've certainly got a lot out of it. I've really enjoyed my time over the last over a decade.
Yes, over the many years. And if you obviously had a vision when you came in. Where do you think we should go? If you were continuing to do this, where would you like us to move technically in the next few years?
Personally, I mean, there's a few things I wanted to get done before I finished my post. I think the thing I've been most pleased with, which you can probably guess, I've already mentioned a few times, the publication, particularly the books. So we've got about 15 at the moment. There's about another 8 or 9 in the pipeline at the moment that are on the way. So, and we've got that to a point now where that's kind of running itself. So that's working really well. But again, as we become bigger, as we become more professional, particularly now we're IFSI, I really think we've got to get involved more on a wider level of engagement. So things like the journal, on top of the ASEC, I think that's important. I think we need to do more services. So, I mean, we put the endorsed training provider in place. I mean, that took about 5 years from the first idea to getting that actually put into place. I think we need to get more involved, more with things like technical content of degree courses. And this is something that I know we've been talking about extensively with the professional development director and the outreach director. And I think we've got to have more technical input and things like that. And we have been doing increasingly as time's gone on, and particularly now we're a professional engineering institute. So I think we've got to get more involved with that, and things like engagement with government, which again, I know you've seen that evolve enormously in your Malcolm. But I think actually taking the reins and driving things a little bit more. I think we've been used to being sort of sat in the back seat and contributing to things. But I think we can just take the initiative, and we've proven with things like the book publications and the journal, the services. Yeah, we can take the reins on this, and we can create stuff, and actually we can be pioneering. We can move things forward.
Yeah, I agree, and we are looking into accreditation of courses, of company training schemes.
And I think we're too used to, and I don't want to sound negative, but being in the shadow, because previously we've been, INCOSE is obviously a great organisation, but we've been very much the UK chapter. And since we've become a professional engineering institute, it's given us a seat at the the Engineering Council and so on. And people, we kind of arrived at the party now, and we need to make a positive impact on that.
Mhm.
We've
Yeah.
never, we've been, well, I've been complaining for years, people don't take it seriously. Now we're at PEI, they've called our bluff a bit now. Now we need to deliver on being taken seriously. And I think it's a very exciting time to be taking on the role as well. I think with IFSI,
Mhm.
that being, we might have heard this before, with that being imminent, Malcolm, I think
Yes.
it's a very exciting time to be getting involved
Mhm.
and taking over, because it's a whole new chapter in the career. You know, we're still involved a lot with INCOSE Central as well, so there's that kind of things. But yeah, I think it's a
Mhm.
very exciting time for us, and it's interesting just seeing, you know, where we were. And certainly when I first got involved in INCOSE UK, 1999, I went to the International in Brighton. I went to an event in Swindon. A few months later, there was an evening sort of, and it was honestly, it was 30 people meeting in the room above a pub, and that membership, and all the people that were actively involved. And honestly, we've gone from that to look at the ASEC, you know, look at what we're doing
Yeah.
now, look at everything that we're achieving, the publications, the PEI, all the professional development stuff that's being done, all the outreach stuff, it's evolved so significantly and dramatically in a very positive way. It's unrecognizable from when from when I first got involved. It's gone from, you know, without want to sound disrespectful, a bunch of hobbyists to actually a professional engineering institute. And that's an incredible achievement, and that's been going on for years and years and years. And
Yeah.
I feel sort of honoured and proud to have been able to contribute to that.
No, thank you. Mhm.
And that's part of the sense of achievement. And I'm sure you feel the same because you've been so involved with all the industry transition. And yeah, it seems like an uphill struggle at times, but it's also, and I hope you'll agree with me on this, Mark, but we've got a very good team together. So when we do have the council meetings, it's a pleasure to attend them as well. It's always good to see people and catch up, particularly if we've got the strategy days the day before, so we can get a night, spend an evening together or whatever. And it's a nice. It's generally a very good bunch of people, and it's nice sort of spending time with them. It's never, personally, I never think, oh, blimey, another council meeting, drag myself to that one. They're always lively, they're always engaging, they're always fun. And
Yes.
I think that's a big part of it, because I think if it wasn't, I don't think any of us would do it, Malcolm.
No, you're right. It's a good bunch of people. And we get incredible support from our secretariat. So anybody stepping into a role will not be on their own. They'll get amazing support from the rest of the council, other volunteers within INCOSE UK, and our secretariat, who do the real hard yards behind, getting stuff done. We may be the face of it, but everyone gets the support they need. I was just thinking when you were talking about that, we are taking initiatives with the Royal Academy of Engineering as well. We want our voice to be heard as the voice for systems engineering in the UK amongst the professional engineering institutes, and we've got things going on with the Royal Academy and the Engineering Council to sort of promote systems approaches, systems thinking, systems engineering, and getting our feet well and truly under the table, and being invited to the forums where these things are discussed, and not being just thought of as you said, as a bit of a club, which is what it was when it started out as the chapter over 30 years now. But we are a professional engineering institution, and we need to behave as one and seen as one. Hence the name change, which will make a great difference, to actually be known as the Institute for Systems Engineering. Just one sort of final one, and then I'll open it up. If anybody wishes to ask a question after this one, we can do. Is there something that you wished you had done but didn't get the chance, or?
Not really, because it's. I mean, there are things. There's always more things that I've always wanted to do in my head, but I mean, you've got to remember, as you said, we're all volunteers at the end of the day as well. So there's only so much effort you can put into them. So I think being able to, focus on a few things and do them well, rather than trying to do too many things and do half a job of it. Not really. I mean, yeah, I don't think there is really. I mean, there's things I would have done. You know, I would have made things more efficient, or maybe got things done quicker, you know, and that kind of thing. But I think that's the nature of the beast. But I think what I am pleased about is we've constantly been doing new things as well. And I think if we just sat back on our heels and just sort of let things happen. But yeah, so I'm pleased overall. And of course, there's always things that you think, yeah, if I had the time, I would have done more. You know, I mean, for example, the journal's an idea we've been playing around with for about 6 years now. I think since, you know, a long time, but that finally getting that to fruition. So it's frustrating like that. So I wish at times we've been able to be more. It's not really more efficient. It's just because we're volunteers. There's only so much time. And like you said, without the secretariat, they're the people that do it. You know, we come up with the ideas and throw it to them. They're the people that actually make this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's been, like I say, it's been incredibly rewarding. You don't have to do 12 years if you sign up for it. I'll point that out now. You can get away with just 3. But but no, it has been incredibly rewarding, and I got a lot out of it. And it'll be I think very sad for me personally when it comes over, because I've had generally a blast over the last 12.
No, it's been great, Jon. And we've been lucky to have you as our technical director over the last few years. So thank you very much. Any of the people online, if you'd like to ask Jon a question, then please do so. Can't see anybody coming off mute. Mike?
So thanks, Jon. I'm afraid I missed the beginning. It took me a while to get Zoom working. I haven't used Zoom for a long time. So I apologise for missing the beginning. I don't know whether you addressed this. So an area of increasing importance has been standards. And I'm aware that INCOSE International obviously has you know, an approach to working with standards bodies, but it seems to me to be a little bit well, hit and miss is perhaps a little too unkind, but it's not particularly coordinated. With regard to IFC, has there been much involvement with standards bodies, and is it an area that you think, or has there been any discussion with INCOSE Central about coordinating efforts on standards?
Right, so I'll answer that in a couple of ways, Mike. It's a really good question. So, and I think the first bit, it goes back to what Malcolm was just saying, that now we're a professional engineering institute. We're now invited to the table rather than us standing outside the door with a cap in hand, sort of begging. So I think we've always wanted to. We haven't done that much historically at an INCOSE UK level, simply because we haven't been a PEI, and we haven't been recognised in that. So, for example, I personally have been involved in standards for many years, and sitting on ISO standards and that kind of thing. And it's something that we definitely need to. Now, at the moment, since we've been a PEI, our engagement has been far stronger. So we are getting invited to a lot more of the strategic side of things. As Malcolm was saying, things like national strategy and so on. At the moment, one of the initiatives which I'm contributing to, but it's not directly under me, is through the outreach director, where he's actively engaging with ISO, for example, and trying to get us a place on those sorts of committees. So it is something that we're looking at. In terms of INCOSE Central, that is something, again, that we have been looking at, but to be quite honest, personally, I don't think we've done probably enough on that level, and there's room for more engagement there. So standards is definitely something that we've started looking at the last few years. So the current outreach director from the previous one, we're certainly looking at that and involved with that. But again, there's other things you need to factor in there, like personally having been involved with things like ISO committees, it's another big time commitment, you know. And I know from the effort I used to put in when I was one of the BSI, the British Standards Institution, representatives on the ISO committees, but the time commitment to that was quite significant. And particularly when it comes to engaging with other bodies, you sometimes put in a position where do I commit more to one body and then to the detriment of another. And I think that's something, particularly in my post, you've got to be quite aware of. So it's definitely something we can do more. It's definitely something that we're actively engaged in at the moment. As I said, I am involved, but the person spearheading that is the current outreach director. And yeah, it's definitely a direction we need to be going in, because, as I said towards the end, where, as Malcolm said, where should we be going? We should be influencing the standards. We should be influencing the strategies and so on. But it's cherry picking the right ones, and it's getting involved so that we can make a commitment. Personally, I'm not a big fan of just sitting on the background and just sort of voting on things on these committees. I think if we're there, we need to be making an active presence, and I think we can.
That's great. Thanks very much.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's fine.
Thanks.
Thanks, Michael. Ben Pritchard's popped up one in the chat, and he asks, are there a few key moments of your tenure that you remember particularly fondly? And keep it clean, Jon.
No. I think the first, there's been a few moments. I think when the first book we published was the Think Engineer book, and I think when that came out, that was a big moment. And then I think the first Don't Panic book, when that came out, which is the one that I wrote with Simon, which is the MBA, that was a big moment as well, because Think Engineer was big because it was a STEM and it was the first proper book we published. And I think when we did that, I think people started to take us a bit more seriously. And then people say, well, why stop there? Can't we do any more? And when we did the Don't Panic, that was the first time when we released that, we just said, no, this is going to be a series of books. And at the time, I said rather arrogantly, very unlike me, I said in 5 years, I said in 3 years, I want us to become the biggest systems engineering publisher in the UK, and in 5 years in Europe, and we've more than achieved that. And that's been really one of the sort of highlights for me. Other highlights have been, well, just about every ASEC really. So every year, and generally we do it every year. I know we sit down after it and we go, oh, how can we improve it? Can it get better? What can we do to change it? And every year something happens, and there's an awful lot of memories that are non sort of work related that come along with it. But yeah, the ASECs are always a highlight. As I say, for me, the books is one of my personal highlights, and it's nice. I won the President's Award a few years ago, and accidentally dropped it at the time. It went all over the place, and then swore, as is my wont. So this week dropping things and knocking things over, Malcolm. That's the amusement of the ASEC audience. So.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? If not, then thank you for attending, and thank you, Jon, for sharing your insights into the role of Technical Director. If anyone on the call wishes to talk to us about the role in any more detail, they can contact us. Suggest you go via the Secretariat first, and they'll put you in touch with us. So that would be great. We're desperate to get volunteers to step up to these roles. As both Jon and I have said, we thrive. That's how we work, with volunteers. And without you volunteering, we won't be able to keep on going the way we have done. So thank you once again for joining, and I'll draw it to a close. Thank you very much.